Good afternoon, everyone. Most of you know me, but if you don't, my name is Alexa Louris, and I'm a science and psychology teacher here at PPHS. I'm here to talk to you about the gender gap in STEM. We're not only going to discuss the gender gap itself, but I'm going to suggest some ways that you can help close this gender gap right in your classroom. If you want a STEM teacher, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Before we begin, I want to ask you all a question. Please raise your hand if you think a gender gap exists in STEM. This could be either in school or in the workforce. All right, you can put your hands down. How many of you are not sure? Okay, you can put your hands down. Hopefully this presentation sheds some light on the issue and you can take some of the things that you learn here and apply them in your own classrooms. So here are the objectives for today. Develop a clear understanding of the gender gap in STEM subjects by analyzing data, examine evidence-based techniques that help close the gender gap, and learn how to employ techniques in the classroom. I'm also going to ask you to kindly complete a survey at the end of this presentation to help me gauge the success of this talk. So before we get into the real meat of this presentation, I want you to turn and talk to the person sitting next to you about the following statements. Some are myths and some are facts. Discuss them with your partner to see if you can come up with an answer based on the knowledge that you already have. Everyone ready? There are more men in the science, math, and tech industries than women. So talk to your partner, and see if you can come up with an answer. Is this a myth or is this a fact? So unfortunately, this is a fact. Only 28% of the STEM workforce is comprised of women. So here's another one. Men have larger brains than women, which makes them more intelligent. Is this a myth or is it a fact? Turn and talk to your partner, and I'll give you a couple minutes. So this is definitely a myth. Whereas men actually do have larger brains, this has nothing to do with intelligence. And the last one. Girls suffer from math anxiety more than boys do. Give you a couple minutes. This is true. This is a fact. Even though studies have shown girls perform just as well as boys in math, their amount of math anxiety is significantly greater. This suggests that if math anxiety is addressed and alleviated in elementary school, girls have the possibility to perform even better than boys in math going forward. So before we can discuss ways to close the gender gap in STEM, we first need to recognize its prevalence. Here's a fantastic visual that shows you just how great the gap is in the workforce, broken down by industry. Women make up 46% of biological scientists, and this includes doctors, 40% of chemists and material scientists, 25% of computer and mathematical occupations, and a mere 16.5% of engineers and architects. Here we have a truly stark discrepancy between males and females. This pie chart shows men and women who work in computer and information sciences, a field that is exponentially growing and becoming more and more important with each passing year. Women make up less than a fifth of all computer scientists in the United States. As you can see in this line graph, girls actually have higher GPAs than boys do in math and sciences combined. For the last several decades, this has been the case, but still we see a disproportionately high male presence in the STEM field. We just learned a few minutes ago that math anxiety plays a huge role in females' distaste for STEM, but what other issues are at play here? We've now looked at some data that showed the gender gap in STEM, but we haven't uncovered why it exists. So let's talk about that. When asked about why they thought the gender gap was so vast in STEM careers, men and women who work in the industry replied with various reasons. The ones that have starred with the navy blue stars is something that we can is something that we can change as teachers. Women in STEM jobs reported the second leading reason why more women don't pursue STEM careers, or about 45% of respondents. is because they aren't encouraged to pursue STEM subjects from an early age. About 30% of female respondents say that they're less likely to believe that they can succeed in STEM than men. 28% are too few, say that there are too few female role models in STEM, and about 25% reported that women are just less interested in STEM than their male counterparts. As teachers, it's our job to cheer these students on and teach them about opportunities that they might not have known about before. We need to boost them up and tell them that they are good enough to enter the science, tech, and math industries. Here are a few more reasons why the gender gap is so great in STEM. So the first one is gender stereotypes, particularly in STEM, are a very real thing. Most kids, when asked what kind of person a scientist was, responded male. I actually do this exercise on the first day of class with my science students. I have them draw a scientist without any other prompting, and then we discuss why many of the drawings are of white males with crazy hair and in lab coats. Many of them don't even realize the stereotypes they have until they're confronted with them. What's more, science, math, and technology are viewed as masculine subjects, while art and English are viewed as more feminine subjects. Female students also suffer from significantly lower self-efficacy and confidence than their male counterparts. The stereotypes we just discussed could actually lead to lower self-confidence in females, further compounded by cultural ideals and the lack of female STEM role models, both in and outside the classroom. This leads girls to believe that STEM isn't a place for women, which takes a huge toll on their self-worth as potential students of STEM. So here are a few things that you can do as soon as tomorrow to help close the gap in your classrooms. Call on females and maintain eye contact with them. Research conducted in various schools shows that teachers call on boys significantly more than girls and maintain eye contact for longer periods of time. They even give boys longer times to answer than girls, so they're not even getting a chance to show what they know. So be sure to give your female students ample time to respond to any questions that you might have for them. Give them options. Nothing's worse than being forced to do something that you know you have trouble with. If you give the students a chance to choose how they can convey information that they've learned, you'll see a much better outcome. Allowing girls to flex their artistic muscles, give oral presentations, or even teach the class for a day are fantastic alternatives to standard STEM assignments. We've all heard it before because it's true. Representation matters. Teach your classes about female scientists, mathematicians, and inventors instead of focusing solely on the old white men we typically learn about. Just exposing your female students to other females in the field can open their eyes to a whole host of possibilities for their futures. Seeing people who look like them in positions of prestige, making change in the world, is invaluable. Create a female-friendly environment. A lot of time in math and science classrooms, the decor is geared toward boys. Robots, sci-fi references, and masculine colors all over the walls. Try to pay mind to your female students when decorating your classroom in the beginning of the year to make them not only feel welcome, but that they were considered during your decorating process. Engage female students verbally. While boys excel in work that is computational and visual spatial, girls are great at verbal communication. Allow your female students to talk to their classmates, give oral presentations, read content-specific novels, and express themselves linguistically in the classroom. And perhaps the most important of all, foster their confidence. Many girls simply write off STEM because they don't think that they have what it takes to succeed in it. In fact, 3 in 4 girls worry about failing in school, and 3 times more boys than girls think that they'll succeed in tech, computer, or an engineering career. Just looking at the numbers from earlier, we know that this isn't true. We need to go out of our way as teachers to bolster their confidence and self-esteem of our female students and let them know that they can achieve just as much, if not more, than their male counterparts. Just the knowledge of their potential and knowing a teacher believes in them can work wonders for their confidence, allowing them to pursue their studies in STEM. So here are some examples of what I've done in my own classroom. As a female science teacher, I wanted to start right away by integrating female-friendly decor into my academic environment. I created a 10-poster series that features quotes by famous STEM women, and I have them hanging in my classroom. They're aesthetically pleasing with neutral tones that appeal more to a feminine taste. I also have a teacher Instagram on which I post photos of students' activities and work. On my Instagram, I make it a point to post photos of notable women in STEM, psychology, and education. I include a little biography about them in the caption and discuss some of their work. I try to include as many races, ethnicities, and ages as I can to make it more relatable and accessible to my students, as the majority of them are Asian American and Latinx. My female students really enjoy liking and commenting on these photos. Sometimes they bring them up in discussion during class, which is really nice. In an effort to give my students a more hands-on experience, I try to get as many female and POC guest speakers as I can to come in and talk to them. Just a few weeks ago, I had Dr. Christina Tatsiosian speak to my 8th grade science classes about CRISPR technology and the huge advances it's been making in finding cures for various diseases like HIV and sickle cell. It was so amazing to see my female students asking her questions about what it's like to be a scientist. So don't worry if you don't teach STEM as a subject. If you don't teach science, if you don't teach tech, engineering, or math, you can still do something. If you're an English teacher, a history teacher, any other teacher who doesn't have a certification in STEM subject, you might be wondering what you can do with all of this information. This is not a waste of time for you. There are things that you can do to close the gender gap in STEM, even if you don't teach a STEM class. For example, highlight notable female figures in your discipline. Like I said before, representation matters, and if it isn't exclusive to science and math. You can also collaborate with STEM teachers on cross-curricular lessons in an effort to make connections for students between subjects. This creates a cohesiveness with students' learning environments rather than keeping them fragmented and compartmentalized. Lastly, read novels with science and math themes. There's a ton of literature that is age-appropriate for students to enjoy and react to about STEM. Some recommendations are Ironheart, Riri Williams, Volume 1, Those with Courage by Eve Ewing, and Lab Girl by Hope Jahren. So I'd love your feedback. Please scan the QR code and complete the survey. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope a lot of these suggestions are something that you would consider doing in your classroom. Have a good one.